As they say, the one who hunts monsters must be careful not to become a monster themselves. It was a misty morning on the first days of spring when early flowers poked through the last remains of winter. The mountain village was not much of a village, consisting of only 8 houses, 5 for living in to 4 animals and one as storage of both food and tools. As expected, only a handful of people lived there, or rather, 19 to be exact. The people living in this reclusive location spent their days tending to their animals in fields. Sometimes, when travelers arrived, they happily let them spend a night or two, and if it was needed, they helped the travelers through the mountain pass. The life in this small settlement may not, or it used to be peaceful until a demon appeared. At first, it had fooled them all, wearing an innocent appearance, but the people had soon figured out its secret, and sure on how to actually deal with the demon, they had sent telegrams to the temples asking for help. The answer had been swift. The demon slayer would be sent to take care of the situation. The people had been relieved, and excitedly awaited the slayer's arrival. This misty, spring morning was the day the slayer stepped foot within their little village. The slayer was an impressive sight. They were tall and full of battle scars. Their clothes were sturdy, not that unlike the villagers' own, but every inch of it was adorned in beautiful and complex crochet patterns. Even if they didn't know it was a demon slayer, they would have known it was a person of importance. The young woman who was the first to meet and greet the slayer became ashamed of her own simple dress. Since money weren't of use in the mountain, the people never really cared about it, but sometimes when they met people from outside, they became aware of how poor they actually were. The woman hurriedly passed the slayer over to the village elder before running off. She spent the rest of her life crying that she would never be able to afford to wear something that beautiful. The bitter cries of the youth went unnoticed by the elder and slayer, the latter solely focusing on the work at hand. Before any proper slaying could be conducted, it was important to know what type of demon they were dealing with. The conversation with the elder consisted mostly of the slayer asking questions about the demon and what it had done. The elder didn't provide much in answers. The demon had appeared in the last few days of winter wearing an innocent disguise, and like with other travelers, the people had taken them in. All had seemed well at first, but soon they had seen the demon stealing from their limited food reserves, and its true nature had been revealed. They had managed to catch it, trap it, but demons were never easy to kill. Therefore they had called for the slayer to ensure the demon's penalty was carried out properly. With the explanation done, the villagers didn't spare any time. They showed the slayer towards the shed they had confined the demon. The slayer was almost shoved forward by the excited people. All the slayer did in response was sigh. This was not a too unusual behavior by people who hired slayers. The demon also couldn't be too horrible if the villagers were able to restrain it. The door to the prison was opened. The villagers hid behind the slayer's broad frame. There were no candles to light the room in the shed, but the morning light was enough to see the chained-up demon. The demon was an odd sight. It was small, and the heavy iron chains around its frail wrists made it look even tinier. As the slayer came closer, the demon lifted its head. Dried blood smeared its face, and the eyes were sunken and lifeless. Its lips were cracked and pale from the cold. The creature before the slayer was no demon at all. No, what the slayer gazed upon in that shed was nothing but a starving child. The truth of the scene before them were too much to bear. The slayer turned around. The slayer was visiting the village to kill demons, and the demons met their fitting end. After the slayer's blade had done its job and cut through the demons of flesh, the slayer let out a scream. While it had been morning when they arrived, it was now darkening. The slayer removed the child's restraints. Then they wrapped it tightly in a warm and cozy blanket. Before the night took over the sky, the slayer walked in the mountain carrying the child to safety. Left behind was a village of demon corpses.